Hey everybody, yes, that's right. I voted already, and I hope that the adults in your life older than age 18 have already voted or they'll be voting soon. Because voting is one of the most important parts of our democracy. That you get a right to have your voice heard by the government, and the government is then chosen by you. They should be representing you. That's why it is important to vote. So I want to spend this week talking about elections, voting, patterns, how people actually run for president, how they get elected, how they run for other offices, how they get elected, and how we can be a part of that part of democracy. Okay? We'll also get a chance to do our own vote here at school. So we need to go all the way back to the American Revolution. Right here, this is a painting of the Battle of Yorktown, the final deciding battle in the American Revolution. And in the center, on the right here, we see George Washington up on the horse. You see the new American flag, and these are the former colonists, now the Americans. And right here in the center is the British kind of doing their walk of shame there as they've lost the Revolutionary War. And remember that when this war was over now, the Americans have to govern themselves. How are they going to decide who's in charge? Remember, they started out with the Articles of Confederation, the first attempt at government, and they were about as strong as a rope of sand, so pretty weak. So they decided, we cannot revise these things. We need to do away with them. And a group of 55 delegates, representatives from 12 of the 13 states got together for the U.S. Constitutional Convention, where they decided how their new government was going to look. And they went through all kinds of struggles and arguments and debates and heated fights even over the 6 or 7 months that they worked in this convention. And they have lots of compromises as well. We talked about a few of those compromises before, but one that we really need to focus on right now is how they took the power of the government and split it into 3 parts, 3 branches of government. One of those branches was the executive branch. So in that executive branch, they knew that that person or those people would be in charge of a third of the government. And they decided that they for sure wanted to have one president, but they didn't want that president to act like a king. So that was one of the compromises. But they also had to then decide, how are we going to elect that president? How are they going to be chosen? So these are the years we really want to focus on here, is right after the Revolution up until the Constitution was ratified. And these are the things they needed to consider. One is having one leader of the executive branch. Yep, they did that. Make sure that the less populated states were represented in the government. That'd be a struggle. And that it was going to be difficult to be educated on the candidates. So let's look at this one first. Make sure that the less populated states were represented. If you were running for president and you needed to get a lot of people to vote for you, would you go and spend your time in Wyoming, where there's like 500,000 people? Or would you be more likely to spend your time in Minnesota, where there's about 5.5 million people? Probably be wiser to spend your time in Minnesota, trying to get as many votes as you can out of those 5.5 million Minnesotans. Why would you go and spend your time in Wyoming? Well, the people in Wyoming would say, well, hey, what about us? You forgot about us. Don't we matter as well? So they needed a system that would make sure that those less populated states were represented and important for candidates. They also realized that it was really difficult to be educated on the candidates. If the candidate was from Maryland and you lived in Georgia, there was little chance you had ever even heard of the representative or the candidate from Maryland, much less know much about them. See, today we could just hop on our phone, right? And we can find out information about somebody in 2 seconds. We can jump on the internet, we can look on the television, we can even get a newspaper if we want to. But during those times, that information was not as easy to access. So they decided that they were going to create something called the Electoral College. And you see it right here, Electoral College. And this is not like University of Minnesota or University of Michigan kind of college. This is a group of people known as electors. And those electors are then actually going to be the ones who vote. You and I, when we vote, we are considered the popular vote. Okay, we're going to take our ballot. We're going to select the people that we want to be the president or the person that we want to be the president. We will turn in our ballots and our state will count up how many popular votes that candidate gets. But they don't count up every one of these and give all of those votes to that person. They use the Electoral College. So we've got our piles of votes here, okay? They're all counted in the state. We'll take Minnesota as the example. And out of the amount of ballots that are cast in the state of Minnesota, one candidate is going to have more votes than the other. If that candidate gets the most votes, they get a total of 10 electoral votes. Think of them like a point, like 10 points, okay? So whoever gets the most votes in Minnesota gets those 10 electoral votes. Whoever gets the most votes in Wisconsin gets those 10 electoral votes. Whoever gets the most votes in Wyoming gets 3 electoral votes. So if the candidate is running for president, they might spend time in Minnesota to get those 10, but they also want to spend time in Wyoming to try to get those 3. Now, when I look across this map of all the electoral votes, it would make sense that maybe I want to try to get the 55 electoral votes in California, right? 55 of them. And then maybe I go and try to get the 38 in Texas, and the 29 in Florida, and the 29 in New York, and the 20 in Pennsylvania, and the 20 in Illinois, and the 18 in Ohio, and the 16 in Michigan and Georgia. But even if you win all of those, it is still not enough to win. You must earn 270 electoral votes. 270 is the magic number. So even if you get all of the large states and all of those large amounts of electoral votes, you still don't have enough to win. Let's try this out once. Okay, right now the score is 0 for the Democrats and 0 for the Republicans. Okay, let's go ahead and give the Republican candidate Wyoming 3 electoral votes. The score is now 3-0. Let's say that the people in Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota all also voted in favor of the Republican, and the Republican gets those electoral votes. The score is now 12-0. Let's go ahead and give Minnesota to the Democrat. The score is now 12-10. Pretty close. But even though it was 4 states to 1 state, and when you look at this map, it looks like there's an overwhelming amount of red on the map compared to the smaller amount of blue. We have to realize that the amount of color on the map can be misleading. We really need to look at the numbers inside of those states. So let's go ahead and now give California to the Democrat. Now the Democrat is winning 65-12. Even though the amount of color on the map looks about even, it's clear that the Democrat is winning. So now let's give the Republican Texas and Tennessee. Okay, a couple more red states. Now it's pretty balanced. It's 65-61. Even though it looks like the Republican is winning with the amount of states and the amount of red on the map, the Democrat is actually still winning. So that's why we have to pay attention to the amount of numbers to get up to the number 270. The magical number is 270. Let's take a quick look at one historic map in 2016. This is the map that Donald Trump won. He had all of these red states. He's the Republican. And the blue states are the Democrat, Hillary Clinton. Now, when you look at this, it looks overwhelming that there is a lot of red and overwhelming that the Republican won. The Republican did win, but this is what the actual numbers looked like. Here's the candidates and the parties. The amount of electoral votes, Donald Trump needed 270. He got 304. Hillary Clinton got 227. So this map does kind of look like the numbers that we'd expect in the Electoral College. The popular vote is the amount of popularity that the person has. And as you can see here, it's kind of unique that the person who got the most electoral votes was not the most popular in the amount of actual popular votes that they got. In fact, Hillary Clinton won by almost 3 million popular votes. This also happened in the year 2000, that the person who got the most electoral votes had less popular votes, and it has happened 3 other times in our history. So 5 times, the person who got the most popular votes had less electoral votes. But the Electoral College is still working in a way, even though there's some blips on history like we see here. So what you're going to be doing is studying some historical maps. You're going to be looking at the trends of the voting data in those states, how those states have voted historically, and then ultimately you're going to be making a prediction about who you think is going to win a few different states. We're then going to take all of our predictions and put them up onto a large map like this and see if our predictions for who we think is going to win the presidency actually wins the presidency when we look at the actual numbers next week. We'll also get a chance for you to vote as well, so your voice can be heard in at least our school level government. Okay? So I voted. I hope that your adults did as well. If they haven't yet, go and ask them. Say, how come you haven't voted yet? Let's make sure that you get your ballots in. Everybody needs to vote. Peace.